Good day and welcome to you. Beautiful to be with each of you, divine beings. Yes, so the big announcement is we have a retreat beginning Friday. It's really beginning now, but it starts officially on Friday. And so I hope you can come. And we're going to explore the 7 chakra centers. And I'm going to speak about the chakras and Kundalini and spiritual awakening today for our teaching. Any new folks in the room, please know I'll give a teaching for the next half hour or so. Then we'll do sharing, and then we'll do questions at the end. Okay. But please come to the retreat if you can make it work, if you can make it happen. So often on the spiritual path, we have all kinds of experiences. Now, we are in this group here together because everyone here has had, to some degree, a massive energetic awakening. And it's important to really understand, like, well, what am I doing on this path? What is the trajectory? And what is it that I want? So this energy of Kundalini that's awoken within you is attempting to wake up all 7 chakra centers. And the way I teach, the 7 chakra centers are the 7 minds of God. They are 7 realms of spiritual awakening, and they are 7 divine intelligences. They are 7 qualities of enlightenment. But the thing that's often missed or mistaken on this path, confused on this path, is this idea that if energy is awake, that means I am spiritually awake. And more often than not, it's not the case. It's not the case that one is awake. And so let's define what it means to be awake. And I want to use the word enlightenment here because energy awakening and spiritual awakening, again, they just get merged and often overlapped. And even I do that. I merge these words often. But enlightenment is when you wake up beyond the individual sense of self and you see and you experience from and as the eyes of God. From and as that which is awake and sees beyond conditioning, beyond time and space, beyond body, beyond chakras, beyond this individual limited being. And so spiritual awakening, excuse me, I'll use the word enlightenment, is when we wake up beyond the individual and we experience from this place of clarity. And again, like enlightenment in and of itself is a whole nother, a whole other conversation. But let's just see if we can be clear here. When one is truly awake, we do not identify as the body, as the mind, as the emotional nature. We still have a body, a mind, and emotional nature, and we still have 7 chakra centers, and we still might, if we're a Kundalini person, have energy flowing, which is awake and flowing through the 7 chakra centers. But to be awake, to truly be awake, to truly be enlightened, is to see from a place of freedom. Freedom that is timeless and is formless. And as you shift into this perspective, and often it's not even you shifting into it, it's the perspective coming into you and gobbling you up and letting you know that you and it are one. As you open into this, it's a completely different way of being that is beyond the individual. Okay. So often when we talk about Kundalini awakening, this is a very individualized human experience throughout your subtle energetic body. Your subtle energetic body is, of course, very similar and hardwired into your soul itself. In a sense, enlightenment is almost like waking up beyond the soul. Not really, but let's just play with that. Let's just play with that. Because even with enlightenment, there is some level of individuality. There's just not much substance there. There's not much substance there. Now let's take the path of Kundalini Awakening. You are a human, and a human has various forms of conditioning. And this conditioning veils your soul. This conditioning veils your divinity. This conditioning veils the truth of your chakras. And so on this path of Kundalini Awakening, this light is beginning to light up that which is false. That which is false, it's beginning to light it up. And you begin to see through it. And this tends to be, for the human being, the first level of complaining. And I want to just put it in those terms, just because as humans, we tend to be proficient at complaining. We tend to be proficient. And so when this light comes into us, we start to see that there's something covering us, something disturbing us, something that has conditioned us. We also might see that, if we're identified with those things, you might think that there's something that's irritating us. So if we identify with the ego, we're going to think of Kundalini as something that irritates me. And it's good to see that if you're an individual on this path and you are irritated by Kundalini, well, that means just something very simple. And this isn't a judgment. It just means that one is identified with their egoic identity. When we're identified as an ego, a personality, a thing that was created in time and space, and there's this other force that comes in the room that's hot and brilliant and luminous, and I say, I don't like this thing. I'm the ego. I'm in charge. I want my life. I want to have my life. I want to do my life. I want to live my life. I want to be a millionaire. I want to be a star in Hollywood. I want to be whatever people want to be. And sometimes it's just, I want to get through my day without feeling any pain. Is a lot of times what most of our egos think. And as this energy wakes up within us, this energy of Kundalini, we might say, I don't like that. I don't like that. Spiritual awakening, like Kundalini awakening, if you wake up to Kundalini, you're waking up and recognizing that you are the Kundalini, not the little ego. And so let's take on that perspective. I step into the Kundalini and I become this light. And as we become this light, as we identify with this light, not with the human body, but as you identify with the light, there's a freedom in that. Now we're getting close to the realm of enlightenment. There's a freedom in this. That I am the light. I am the light. But again, if we identify with the human personality, which almost every single person on planet Earth does, I am this body, I'm this mind, I'm my political identity, I'm my dogma, I am a Christian. That means I need to believe in the one and only Lord Jesus Christ. There can be no other. We get lost in these very limiting perspectives. Now, if you jump into the stream of Kundalini, you begin to open into a realm that is much more unlimited. Much more unlimited. I'd like to say it's limitless, but not to split hairs here, but when Kundalini merges with a consciousness of Shiva, then one's awakening becomes limitless. Because even if we identify as Kundalini, as just light, well, what about non-light? What about non-existence? What about the great void? What about great emptiness? What about space? And again, I don't mean to split hairs here, but I want us to kind of show a model here. There's human egoic identification, and there's identifying. Let's make a step, another step above that. You might identify with your heart chakra. And as a human, you might witness energy moving in your heart chakra. And that energy may be awake, but that doesn't mean you are awake. That means you are witnessing energy moving in your heart chakra. If you dive deeply into the heart, and you become the hugeness of the heart, the hugeness of freedom, and begin to come to know that all is love. Well, now we're moving into the realm of enlightenment. And so I hope this is making some sense here. The reason this is very helpful to understand is often the experience of Kundalini awakening is absolutely overwhelming for the human. I even am so bold to say that it is supposed to be overwhelming for the human because the energy of Kundalini awakening is attempting to propel one and one's identity and identification into a space beyond the human, beyond the human, beyond the individual, beyond the conditioned sense of self, beyond this day, this time, this gender, this age, this body, whatever it is we identify with. So this energy of awakening, if you open to it, you'll notice that it begins to clear the veils of the human personality and open one into something much, much greater than the normal everyday human. Now, I will add this caveat. Some human beings are exceptional at maintaining their personal egoic sense of self and exploring the divine worlds and coming back to the human sense of self and writing a blog about their spiritual experiences. These are my experiences that I have had. And the ego, it always tries to claim things and attempt to own it. Just like, with politics, it's like people go into, some kind of discourse or some kind of perspective, let's say with democratic values, and say, I am a Democrat. That's what I am. No, what you are is a divine being in a human body. And this human body has identified with some type of conditioning. And we do the same thing with spiritual experiences that we do with our politics. We take them on, we say, oh, this experience that I had, I'm not having it now, but I can tell you about it. I can write a book about it. And we put it on like clothes. Like clothes. It's been really hot here in Colorado. Sometimes I'll open my office door and I'll see these naked people in my house. I say, where are your damn clothes at? I say it, to the girls in my house, like, where are your clothes at? Where are your clothes at? And so in a sense, enlightenment is like taking off the clothes, taking off the mask, because they're burdensome, because they're hot, they have weight. They're dense, and we want to be free. We want to be free. I have these Hawaiians at my house. They don't like to wear so much clothes in the summertime. So walk out. Now they're going to school and they have to wear their clothes. So it's a silly thing, this world we live in. It's a silly thing. And I hope that metaphor doesn't disturb you in any way. The thing that people get confused about on the spiritual path is just this primary question of who and what am I? Am I that which is awake and aware? Am I beingness that can see and have experiences, but is not the experience, but is beyond the experience? Am I that thing? That's the enlightened one. Or am I the human being who wants my life to be a certain way, a controlled way, a pleasurable way? I want things to go easily and smoothly for me. I want to be in control of my growth and the speed at which I traverse the path. I want to be in control of how I feel inside. Like, these are all egoic ideas. They're not wrong and they're not bad. It's just a different type of perspective. A different type of perspective. And this perspective, it tends to lead to suffering. And the suffering can be as simple as, one of my really good friends brought me this metaphor of just trying to get that thermostat just right. It's trying to keep it right at 68 degrees at all times. So the ego is always trying to do. It's like, let's keep it 68 degrees. For those of you in Celsius, I have no idea what that is, but let's, like, 68 degrees. It's just like the weather in San Diego is just like perfect all the time. Not hot, not cold. It's just right. Sometimes it rains, but it's not hot and it's not cold. That's what the ego wants. The one who is enlightened isn't concerned about how things feel. For the one who is enlightened is the space in which feeling arises. Now, that is a huge difference. It's a profound difference, profound way of being. Now, I just spent the whole last 20 minutes dividing the teaching. Now I'm going to mix the two teachings. When you open to Kundalini Shakti and you begin to clear the veils and the energy begins to flow and open more fully and radiate as the truth of any of the 7 chakra centers. So let's just say the hara. So you open in the hara, and the first thing you're going to find probably is numbness. You go a little deeper, you might find fear. You go a little deeper, and by deeper I mean just as the light shines and you go inward, you will find existential terror. And an ego would be like, I don't want anything to do with that. If you continue to open beyond terror, you begin to open into this immense groundless ground. And I was with someone yesterday, and we did this very thing. We started off with some story of their childhood and pain and confusion in their life and distorted relationships. Again, like, that's a second chakra thing. That's a hara thing. Distorted relationships veils the hara. And then there was sadness and fear and this feeling of the void. And then as we opened into the void together, we began to discover, oh, there's something here that is great and vast and empty and free. And oh, I appear to be this thing, this depth of freedom. The cost of admission into this room was a willingness to be uncomfortable, a willingness to see and sit with and lovingly embrace the wounding around this chakra center. And as together we opened, we began to experience ourselves as the groundless ground. Now we're stepping into the realm of enlightenment. And after we step into the realm of enlightenment, then we have a choice. We can stay here, or we can say, oh, the meditation is over. I'm going to go back. My human ego, I need to be in charge of my life. I got a schedule, I got a job, I got things I got to do, I have places I have to be. I have to vote sometime soon. I have to put on my political identity. Up, someone on Twitter is messaging me. They're arguing with my politics, and I need to attack them. Oh, look, here's someone else on Twitter, and I need to tell them that I'm enlightened. I'm going to share my blog about my experience that I had. But of course, that won't be true enlightenment. That will be an ego claiming enlightenment, claiming the past. It's kind of like if I dress up as a character for Halloween. The one I always dressed up as a little boy was an army man. I dressed up as an army man. I wore camo and ran around the streets and, but come on now. I know that was just an experience I had on October 31st. That's not what I am. It's just a character, a costume that I put on, and an experience I had. An experience I had. That's different from you stepping into the thing and staying there. Now, the fun thing about Kundalini, and you all might not think it's fun, but the fun thing about Kundalini is, I think this is fun, is it's relentless. It does not give up. Kundalini says, I want to flow in you and as you. As we shift into the as you, and we're beginning to step into the realm of enlightenment, where this energy starts to flow as you. It means you know yourself as the energy. And there's freedom in that. There's freedom from the body. There's freedom in the sense that you are not limited by your human sense of self. You still have a human sense of self, and you can see it. It might slow you down a little bit. My human sense of self slows me down all the time. I got sick earlier this month. I'm still recovering. You can hear it in my voice, but the human sense of self is a thing. But where I identify is with this space of freedom. With this space of freedom. And occasionally the character Craig comes in and messes things up, and people send me an email saying, I said the wrong thing. I said the wrong thing. And for that, I'm going to ask you to forgive me. To forgive me. And that's the paradoxical world we live in. The world that we live in. We live in this world. And if you're in this group, you're here because this energy has woken up in you. And God, let's have some fun here. God Almighty has chosen to take your life. And the ego will say, that's not fair. That's not fair. But God Almighty wants to show you a much greater life. A much greater life. Now, I'll say something that's a little bit heartbreaking to me. But I have a little girl, and she's in the 5th grade. And the 5th grade, my conditioning, my education calls that elementary school. That's what I call that. But at the school she's at, they don't have enough room for fifth graders in the elementary school. So they have to send her to a building next door. And that building next door is called middle school. And as a human egoic parent, I am not ready for that. I'm not ready for my little girl to be a middle schooler. So life has come along and picked her up and placed her in middle school and said, sweetheart, you are now in middle school. You're a big girl now. You're going to be running with the big girls. And life, I'm going to show you a greater life than elementary school. That's the same thing that happens with Kundalini, with God coming into you. God says, okay, you've had your human life. Now I want to show you a life divine. Now, some of you may kick and scream and whine and moan. And listen, I did it also. I don't think I'm judging you. I kicked and screamed and resisted, just like the best of them, just like the best of them. But at some point, there was something that helped me when I looked up and I realized this thing that was grabbing me by the throat and wanting to give me a whole other life. I realized, oh, this is something great. And nowhere in there did I say it's something easy and painless, but this is something great. And there was some truth within me that realized when something great is in the room, I'm going to bow before that. And as we bow before something great, we become something great. And this greatness is that which is free. That which is free. And so in a funny way, I will call this game of enlightenment, this game of spiritual awakening, a gift. In an egoic way, you call this a gift, you might want to punch me in the face. You might want to punch me in the face. Because it's hard. It's hard. And I have compassion, great compassion for wherever you are at on the path. But from the place I teach, is a place that is much greater than an identification with how you feel. And this is one of the hardest things to get through to people on the path. That feeling is not the truth. Immensity is the truth. Immensity is the truth. Feeling is an experience, and feeling often hurts. I'm inviting us into a space beyond feeling, where you become the source of all things. And so,